Welcome to the Podcasting Secrets Show, where successful creators share their best stories, secrets, and strategies. I'm your host, Nathan Gwilliam. Hello, incurable creators, and welcome to this episode of the Podcasting Secrets Show. I'm Nathan Gwilliam, your host, and today I'm joined by Saadia Khan. Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Saadia is the creator and host of the acclaimed podcast Immigrantly. Through her platform, Saadia has built a powerful space for immigrant voices, sharing stories that challenge stereotypes, foster understanding, and reshape the way we think about identity and belonging. With her thoughtful approach to storytelling, she's turned Immigrantly into a bridge between cultures and a celebration of diverse human experiences. She's had some pretty amazing achievements over the years as well. In addition to founding Immigrantly Media, which is an award-winning podcast-first company, she's also produced and hosted more than 300 episodes, which have featured notable guests like Laurie Santos from the Happiness Lab, Nigran Farsad from Fake the Nation, and Jonathan Menjivar from Classy. She's raised $150,000 in funding from American Public Radio Group's Horizon Fund, validating the platform's potential for inclusive storytelling. And that's pretty impressive. We applied for that and we didn't get it. So congratulations to you. She's a published writer and speaker. She's contributed to publications such as Yes Magazine, Brown Girl Magazine, and the Globe Post. And she's been invited to speak at institutions, including Columbia University. Thank you so much for joining us today, Saadia.
Thank you, Nathan, for having me. I am really excited to be here.
Yeah. Can you start off by sharing with us your journey to become a podcaster?
Oh, wow. In a nutshell, I am an activist. In fact, I have an MBA in a past life. I am an activist by training. And podcasting was my passion before it was anything else. I'm an avid podcast listener, used to binge listen to podcasts, um, and then decided to create a podcast about my journey as an immigrant in the US because I thought, what better way to connect with individuals than use podcasting as a medium because it's so casual, it's so intimate. It's as if two friends are talking to each other. And that's how Immigrantly came about. Fun fact, the podcast was previously known as the Alien Chronicles. And I don't know what I was thinking. It was a tongue-in-cheek title. I thought it would be fun because immigrants are called aliens. But I kid you not, we had so many people write bad reviews because they were like, oh my gosh, I thought it was a UFO alien podcast. What is this all about? And hence we switched to Immigrantly. But 5 years in, we have a small podcast network with 7 podcasts, a newsletter, and much more to come.
Okay. You've brought up some really cool issues I'd like to ask you about before we go further into your journey. So number one, you had to rebrand partway through, and I've had to rebrand a show before, and that's hard. You lose a lot of brand goodwill. And tell me about the good, the bad, and the ugly related to having to rebrand your podcast.
So we did it early on. It wasn't that big a deal. People didn't know much about us in the beginning. So it was an easy switch. But I will say this, I was so attached to the word itself and the title, The Alien Chronicles. I felt like I was giving away a part of who I was. But then Immigrantly just fit right in. It's short, sweet, and it really alludes to the podcast or the company being about immigrants, but not in its entirety, because obviously the identity is so much more expansive than just, an immigration status. So it really speaks to who we are. But yeah, we did it early on. It wasn't a big deal for us.
Yeah. And the key takeaway for the other podcasters that are listening is make sure you get your name right the first time so you don't have to go through the process. Luckily, you fixed it quickly. And you didn't have to wait till you had hundreds of thousands of followers and you're making all this money and it hurt you really bad financially. If you do make a mistake as a podcaster, do what Saadia did and fix it quickly instead of hanging on to it if it's not the right name for you. Okay, the other thing I wanted to talk about that you said was was this network. You're on a network of 7 podcasts. How did you so first of all, why did you go to having a network of podcasts? What are the pros and the cons of doing that? And then how did you go about implementing that?
So the first, to answer your question, the network was something that I always wanted to do. So I always wanted to create more than one podcast because, again, the focus of Immigrantly is immigrant identity, and I really wanted to tap into different genres and lived experiences. Our focus is more on the cultural, the human lens of immigrant experiences in the US and beyond. I could not limit myself to one genre, right? So, Immigrantly was basically an interview style podcast where I would have guests from all different walks of life. But then I really wanted to tap into sports and pop culture, dating, politics, all of it. So that was always the goal. However, as a podcaster, you probably know this really well. It's not easy sustaining a podcast, growing a podcast network, creating something that's sustainable. And that's been a challenge. The other challenge that we faced, at least in the beginning, and sometimes even now, is creating I guess, conveying to the listeners and the audiences that the stories are nuanced, but they are also widely relatable. That was always a challenge for us because a lot of times when people think of immigrants and immigrant identity, they start to box them in a very narrow vision of what that means. Although it is about human experiences, and that's how we have expanded, and that's what we mostly cover.
Yeah. So why 7 podcasts? Do they all cover unique nuance within immigration? What are some
Yes.
of those
So,
focuses?
as I said, we have one that focuses on sports and history, one that talks about American pop culture through Gen Z lens. It's hosted by 2 Gen Zers. One
Gotcha.
that's about dating, which is hosted by this phenomenal human who shares her dating experiences from attachment styles to toxic exes. And then we had one on politics. But to be honest, Nathan, I did want to create something that really speaks to the human experience. So we are trying to flip the script on the binary that exists within this identity, which is, oh, it's either politics or policy, it's either triumph or tragedy. We are really talking about the messy, human,
Yeah.
vulnerable, interesting conversations.
I love it. Okay. At the beginning, you faced skepticism, whether you could focus on kind of this niche of immigration while still appealing to broad audiences. Were you able to address that? And how did you address that?
We are still continuing to face that challenge, and we are trying to chip away one skepticism at a time. I feel like human connection, and I keep going back to humanity of shared experiences, is at the core of how we try to overcome or we are overcoming this challenge. Again, talking about pickleball and the genesis of pickleball, or why do we have national anthem at different sports in the US, or what are different attachment styles. That really speaks to the humanity and the depth and breadth of human experiences. So that's where we have overcome in many ways the niche idea or perception of immigrant experiences and the podcast and network itself, because we are so focused on shared human experiences. I'm sure, Nathan, you and I have so many different shared human experiences, right? And you and I can
Mhm.
sit here and talk about those on a very human, basic level, irrespective of our immigration status or when we came to the US or whether our
That's right.
ancestors came here before us, right?
Yeah.
And that's what we are trying to do. We are talking to other people as humans, and connecting with them on that very granular level.
Okay, audience, pay attention to what she just said. I'm going to try to summarize it, but this is a really important point that she made. A lot of podcasters make the mistake of they pick a topic like immigration, and then they think their show needs to be about immigration and that every episode needs to be about immigration, and it gets really boring really quick and people won't come back to your show over and over again. She went a completely different direction. Saadia, um, she focused on the immigrant experiences, right? These experiences they have, and everything she talked about, from dating to sports to whatever the life is like of people that are living an immigrant experience, those are the topics she covers. And that's something that someone who is living an immigrant experience will come back to over and over and over again. You're probably going to learn everything you need to know about immigration, and the law, and the specific nuances of that pretty quick. But when you can cover that broad scope of immigrant experiences, you're going to attract a lot more people, and they're going to stay with you a lot longer. And any thoughts on that, Saadia?
Absolutely, Nathan. That's so true. And just to clarify, we have a podcast for each of those different genres, right? So we have this LY theme going on: Sportly for sports, Banterly for Gen Z, Lovely for dating, Nationly for politics. And the reason, as you said, is to connect on a broader level. And I will tell you something interesting that I started doing recently, which really speaks to me personally, but it's something that I started on my Instagram, which is an Instagram series about F1 for immigrant moms, where I talk about F1 because my husband is a huge F1 fan.
Like
And he
Formula
introduced,
One
yes,
racing?
Formula One
Okay.
racing. And he introduced me to this sport, and I am obsessed. And to be honest, I'm learning with everybody else. So you will see me talk about, Norris and Piastri, my favorite team, Red Bull, go Red Bull, like Verstappen is the best. So I think the idea has always been to connect as a human more than anything else. And we are really, really taking that seriously and taking it to the next level.
Okay, so to clarify, when you have a show that's maybe sportly, is that a sports show for people who are living the immigrant experience, or is that a sports show for everybody?
I would say it's a sports show for everyone, hosted
Okay.
by a brilliant sports journalist who is second gen, kid of immigrants. But we talk about NFL and pickleball and NHL. We talk about F1, Formula One. We talk about all different sports from an angle that's more historical rather than what's happening on the field. But again, the idea of connecting it to immigrant identity is who's narrating those stories and where those stories are coming from. So the universality of the podcast exists.
Okay. What are some of the greatest successes you've seen so far from your shows?
Uh, I the biggest success that I see, other than the monetary success or having partnered with American Public Media Group or having been recognized in all these different places, is when people reach out to us and they tell us how seen and heard they feel. Because, as you said, and I've spoken about this a few times, when people see themselves outside the binary that they've been made to feel boxed in, that's when they really connect with the content. And I will say this, I have said this previously on other podcasts as well. There's a lot of narrative thinning. That's what I call it in immigrant identity, where people's identities are stripped to the point where cliches are left only, and we are trying to add those layers of humanity back onto that identity, and that's what really connects with people. So beyond the monetary success or recognition, what really makes my heart swell is when people say this really connects with them.
I love it. I love being able to define your podcast in something much bigger and more meaningful than just money. What is your secret sauce of success?
This may sound very cliched, but authenticity, authenticity, authenticity. And when I say authenticity, not just finding your voice, but creating a safe space to share it with others, right? So for me, whether I am interviewing, um, you know, industry disruptors or media folks or activists, I speak, I show up the way I am, whoever I am. in my full entirety, with my accent, with my quirky behavior, with my cultural, perception or norms of how I was brought up. And I think that is so important, Nathan, because people are craving authenticity. And it doesn't have to be, I don't have to be like you, or I don't have to be like somebody else, right? You and I are different humans. We bring different experiences. And that's what the fun is in
That's right.
podcasting.
How boring it would be if we were all the same, right?
Right,
It's
right.
like having a spice cabinet where the only spice you have is salt, and every time you go to cook, you can only use salt. It only works to cook when you have all of those different flavors to choose from.
Exactly.
Okay. Today's episode of Podcasting Secrets is sponsored by PodUp, the ultimate podcasting platform. As podcasters, we're always looking for ways to simplify our workflows, grow our reach, and make more money. What if I told you that there's a tool that combines more than 35 essential podcasting features into one platform? That's exactly what PodUp offers, and it's transforming how we create, grow, monetize, publish, syndicate, and do so many other things with our podcasting content. From recording and editing to website building and audience engagement, PodUp covers virtually the entire podcasting process. What sets PodUp apart is its focus on growth and monetization. The platform includes AI-powered features that help you save time on tasks like creating short video clips and transcribing episodes. It also offers tools for guest management, content syndication, and email list building, all accessible from one centralized dashboard. For those of you looking to turn your podcast into a revenue stream, PodUp provides integrated monetization tools that help you market products, courses, and services directly to your audience. What's even better is that with PodUp, you don't have to waste time and money switching between multiple softwares to produce your podcast. With PodUp, you get all 35 modules within one fully integrated platform and for a fraction of the cost. If you're interested in simplifying your podcast workflow while expanding your reach and making some money while you're at it, check out podup.com. That's PODUP.com and get a free trial of the software. Now back to the show. What is the biggest challenge you have faced in your podcasting journey, and how did you get through it?
So one, as I said, relatability. People are still confused as to whether these podcasts are meant for them or whether they should consume it, because it's so focused on immigrant identity. And I always say these are human experiences. So if you are a human, you will love these stories. That's one. I believe the other thing that we've seen, or the other challenge that we've seen, which I feel a lot of podcasters face as well, is discoverability. And I would love to know how you overcome that. I mean, we've tried different ways. We've introduced video podcasting, we are doing audio, we have social media, but that's a collective challenge for the industry itself that we have faced as well. So I think those are the two that come to mind, other than obviously the
Yeah.
financial bit, which can be challenging at times.
Yeah, the discoverability is a huge issue. I've written an ebook that's called The Ultimate Guide to Grow a Podcast, and I go through 30 different strategies to grow, to help people discover your podcast. Also, when I interview guests on my show and I ask them, "What's your number one secret?" That has helped you to grow your podcast. The most common answer that people give, like 80% of people probably give the same answer, is getting on other podcasts with related audiences. So really focusing on becoming a guest on other shows like you're doing here with me. So that's probably number one. Uh, Paid ads is actually very effective. Paid ads is incredibly effective. And that's probably the second best strategy that's out there. Search engine optimization is incredibly important. And when we think of SEO, we think of like Google. But in the world of podcasting, there's a dozen different search engines that you have to care about. You have to care about the YouTube search engine and obviously the Google search engine. You have to care about the Apple Podcast search engine and the Spotify search engine, right? And so you've really got to make sure you're picking keywords that people are actually typing and you're filling existing demands. And in the name of your show, you're using the keywords that people search for, right? If your show is about Chinese adoption, right, you don't call your show The Red Thread.
Yeah.
if you use a name like the China Adoption Podcast, you're probably going to get triple the amount of discovery instead of calling it the Red Thread. At least for now, that's still how the algorithms work, and you still get a lot of preference with that. Another really important strategy is at the end of every episode, I recommend you promote a lead magnet. So you create something free that you give away, like an ebook or a little mini course or something. Yours could be like I don't know, the immigrant experience checklist, right? How to get the most or something. And you give that away for free and you promote it at the end of every episode. But when they download that, they're giving you their name, their email, their contact, rest of their confidential information and permission to market to them. And then every time you do an episode, you're pushing it out to your list and you're just constantly growing your list. So instead of waiting for people to come to you and being dependent on other algorithms, you're going to them. Having a website is really important. Today, I found that one of my other shows just is now showing up on the very first page for its top keyword. There's just a lot of value that you can get by having your own website instead of being dependent upon other people's algorithms surfacing you, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And some of these things we've already done. Like we've had the website ever since Immigrantly came about. That was something that was on my top priority list. You're absolutely right about appearing on other podcasts. We've tried that. What's fascinating to me is the SEO, which you mentioned. It's more than just Google search. A lot of people, including me, we
Yeah.
really get tied to, oh, is it like just the Google search? But as you mentioned, key search, keywords matter, whether it's your description, it's your title, whether it's for Spotify, Apple, even they have different algorithms, and it's important to really understand each. But I'm curious, and I'm turning this around and making it into an interview of you. Do you think AI, especially for smaller companies like Immigrantly, is playing an important role in helping with some of that?
Yes, absolutely. I saw something last week that I don't know if this is true. Maybe I read wrong, but I read that Google's search traffic has dropped 40%.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
AI is annihilating. I look at me now, and every time I want to find something, I'm turning to ChatGPT and I ask
That's
answers,
true.
and I get the exact answers, and I don't have to go through and search through a page of search results and try to find the best one. ChatGPT is giving me the answer. And yeah, I think the biggest there's several big implications of AI for podcasters, but I think the biggest one is people are going to find us a lot less on Google, and people are going to find us a lot more on the AI search engines like ChatGPT. And so we need to make sure we're optimizing ourselves for AI searches and not just the old school web-based searches. Still important to have the website. Still important to. It just adds one more dimension that we need to deal with. The other big thing that I think is really important about podcasting is I think if you use the right AI tools, I think AI can save podcasters more than 50% of their time to publish and promote an episode. If you
Absolutely.
are not using the AI tools, you are spending more than twice as much time probably is what you need to spend.
Yeah, but there is now we're seeing companies trying to produce AI podcasts, and I
Yeah,
am
that's
not in
stupid.
favor of that. That's so
I
stupid
agree.
because I am like, okay, if we want a perfectly curated audio noise, um, then it's not podcasting, it's not storytelling, it's not the messy conversations that you and I can
Yeah.
have, right? It's just audio wallpaper, which none of us need. So guys, if you are listening to this, do not listen to AI podcasts. It's just so wrong. It's
Yeah,
blasphemous.
I agree actually. So I think the point that Sadia is making is there are people who are going in and they're using AI and saying, okay, write me a podcast about this. And then it creates a script. And then they're saying, okay, now give me an AI voice and an AI face and create a fake podcast person saying this fake thing that you created. And I agree with her completely. That's spam. That's filling the internet with um, I don't know. It's filling the internet with worthless, very low value information. And one of the reasons I feel that way is you look at what Saadia said. What is her secret sauce? It's authenticity, authenticity, authenticity. When you try to do an AI produced content, an AI produced video, and you lose all of that authenticity, and it's really hard for a person to connect with that, in my opinion.
And you're right, Nathan. I like that opinion. We should not promote AI podcasts.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. What is the best strategy you've used that's helped you to grow your reach and following?
We've used multiple. So social media presence is one. We are also tapping into YouTube podcasting. Now, a lot of people may not know this, but there are a lot of countries and places where podcast is consumed through YouTube. So it's like video
Yeah.
podcasts, India, Pakistan being one. So we are trying to grow our presence there, to grow our outreach. A lot of people get to know about us through YouTube as well, consistently producing episodes. So all of our podcasts, most of them are weekly podcasts, Banterly, Lovely, Immigrantly, Sportly. We come out with weekly episodes and consistent social media presence, reminding people. We are also experimenting with a few other things. SMS push notifications is something that we are grappling with. I'm not sure how comfortable somebody would be with that. But again, if people have subscribed, they've given us
Yeah.
permission, then we can. And then we've also launched a newsletter called Hyphenly, keeping in line with the theme that we have. Every podcast, every name ends in ly. That's our brand strategy. So we came up with Hyphenly, which is, as you said, Nathan, a way of connecting with subscribers and listeners directly. So we are really giving them a window into the culture, but from a different lens. So all of those strategies is what we are using in order to grow our outreach.
Yeah. Those are some great strategies. What have you done with monetization so far?
That's a difficult question to answer. We have, like a lot of podcasters, used advertisers. We are on Spotify ad network, which, if you are a podcaster, an aspiring podcaster, you probably know, not a great thing because it's literally pennies on a dollar.
Yeah. It
But
doesn't pay very much.
it doesn't pay you very much, especially when you don't have millions of downloads. But I would say we've also reached out to advertisers. Sponsorship is something we've tapped into because we've sponsored with organizations that really believe in our mission. Believe it or not, we have sponsored with the National Hockey League. Nike, others who really believe in our mission. And sponsorship goes a long way because it's not CPM based, and it's not like, oh, it's based, or it's not tied to your download numbers, which to me becomes challenging for smaller podcasts, right? Or smaller, or podcasters who don't have the numbers that these advertisers are looking for. But that's what we've done for monetization so far. Newsletter is another effort, our effort to expand that revenue stream. Um, and then YouTube, again, is another way to tap into YouTube revenue. But we have some other interesting ideas in the pipelines, which hopefully, Nathan, I can share in the future, but not right now.
Yeah. Okay. That sounds great. Going back to your point about YouTube, it wasn't that long ago, just a few months ago, that YouTube became the number one preferred platform to consume podcasts. So it's not just a platform people are using; it is now the top podcasting platform. So if you are a podcaster, um, you need to be on YouTube. And it's shocking. I've been seeing how some of the younger generation, especially, has been using it. They'll get in the car and they'll turn it on YouTube, and then they'll drive. So they'll be playing the video, but they'll be listening to the audio while they're driving in the car. It's ridiculous. They're just so used to using YouTube. They're so comfortable with YouTube that even when they can't watch it, they're still listening to it.
I've heard Netflix is also starting some podcast network, or really experimenting, planning to experiment with podcasting, which is like, okay, what will Netflix do? Like, will it be another podcast network?
What will Netflix do? Was that your question?
Yeah, I mean,
I
I've heard Netflix is also jumping right in.
I actually don't know the answer to that. I've not heard that, but that does not surprise me at all, because they're about video subscriptions, right? If I were them, I would lean into video subscriptions, and I would basically, if I were them, I would go to podcasters and say, "Hey, do you want to make money from your podcast? Let's charge a subscription, and let's have some episodes for free, and then let's have some episodes or portions of episodes that cost more, bonus content, and let's put that bonus content inside the Netflix paywall, and let's pay you as people consume that information." But
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And especially for small networks, again, we have done video podcasting, but short form. So it's mostly reels. What we want to try out is long form, entire episodes recorded and released on YouTube, because that's a completely different ball game versus like a 60-second reel, which, by the way, we've been doing on YouTube and on Instagram. But our goal is to go long form.
the long form works really well on YouTube. I've been doing all of my episodes on YouTube long form,
Oh,
and I have an episode that launched on Friday of last week and has 6,700 um, long form views. Just in the last few
wow.
days. Yeah, and it's taken me a while. That show's been up for a year or something. Um, I have. I was looking this morning. Like, there's one episode in there with 14,000 long form views. There's a couple with 11,000 long form views. Like, you wouldn't think that people would go and sit there for half an hour and watch it, but they do. They are
They
going in
do.
and consuming the long form in YouTube,
Yeah, yeah. But it's a lot
and I
of
know
work for
that's
podcasters, though. It's a lot of
yeah.
work for podcasters.
It is. And it takes a long time to get there, and you have to put a lot of marketing behind it, and I know 11,000 isn't a lot for a lot of people, or 14,000 views for a video. But for a newer show that's just publishing weekly, and you got to build somewhere, and you got to start building your traction, and you get there. I interviewed the guy who helped produce Joe Rogan shows in the early days. And he says that Joe Rogan didn't even look at his stats for like the first 5 years. Like, he didn't even worry about monetizing for the first 5 years. Like, it was just all about getting out there and providing value and building a following and building an audience. And I think so often podcasters get in and they try to monetize too quickly. And they just got to realize, I just got to get in. I got to be consistent. I've got to produce great content, and I've got to build a following, and people are going to share it, and it's going to get discovered. But that process just takes time. It's not a get rich quick scheme, right? It's more of like a long-term retirement strategy.
Absolutely. And to your point, building that authentic audience and really tapping into people who would come and listen to you for half an hour, 45 minutes is so important. Because if it were a quick fix, then we would see a lot of celebrity podcasts take off, and they don't, because not everybody is a good podcaster. Not everybody has a podcast voice. Not everybody can tell a good story
That's right.
through audio or even video. So just keep in mind that podcasting is probably one of those mediums that requires more authenticity than any other platform, because of its intimacy, because of its casual cadence.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Um, okay. You've talked a lot about storytelling and how important it is to be a great storyteller. What's the best advice that you can give for other podcasters about how they can also be great storytellers?
Be unapologetically yourself. This is something that I keep bringing up. The more honest you are about who you are and what your strengths or weaknesses, vulnerabilities are, the more people will relate to you. A lot of times, podcasters really get wound up in how clean the voice is or how perfect their delivery is. But what really matters is your content and how unapologetically you are. And honestly, listeners can tell. Listeners can tell when you're being yourself or when you're pretending to be somebody else. So just be yourself, tell your story the way it is, unencumbered by any reservations, and you'll see how people come to you, because there is an audience for everybody. You just have to be yourself for it to really come to you?
Yeah, some people are scared of being themselves, and some people are scared of taking a stand and taking a position and saying how they really feel about something. Um, because they're afraid of offending some people, right? If you have a show about immigration, there's going to be pro-immigration people and anti-immigration people, and there's some people who are afraid of taking that political position. But the problem is, if we're vanilla, we offend everybody, right? And when we just speak up and use our voice and we say how we really feel and what we really believe, and we advocate for our audience and our community and our opinions and values, our people are going to come to us, right? And the people that aren't our people, they're going to leave us, and that's just fine. We don't need everybody. We just need to find our people.
Absolutely. And to Nathan's point, I will say this: how you deliver, how you listen, how you articulate your thoughts, your opinions, although they may be differing, matters, right? You can be respectful and disagree with somebody. You can present your point of view and not be condescending. So it's the delivery as well. Something that I have seen, I've interviewed over 350 people. I don't always agree with all of them, but something that my guests have always told me is how respectful I am when I sit down with them and give them space for disagreements as well. So, yeah, go ahead, disagree, but disagree it in a way where you're recognizing somebody else's humanity.
I love that. That is so important. We don't have to agree with everybody, but we do have to be respectful to them, and we do have to be true and respectful to ourselves. Okay, Saadia, if our audience has enjoyed this episode like I have, and they want to learn more about you and your show and your services, what are the best ways for them to do that?
You can check out our website. It's immigrantlypod.com. We have a channel on Apple Podcasts. It's called Immigrantly Uninterrupted. All our podcasts are there. But honestly, guys, go to our website. You can subscribe to Hyphenly. You can look at our podcasts. You can get to know more about me. Read some of my articles and my story. So yeah, website is your best bet.
Sounds great. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Nathan. This was wonderful.